Warning. You are entering a restricted area. Return to where you came from, or be destroyed.
You're heading your way towards the useless nerdy knowledge. Please do not go any further. If you will not comply, you will hear a nerd rambling.
Nerd alert!
Get those nerds! Nerd! 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 Exterminate!
Go ahead, make my day.
Bazinga!
I'll be back.
Groovy.
Greetings, fellow podcast listeners. Welcome to another spooky-ish episode of Useless Nerdy Knowledge. I'm your host, Ben, and I'm here to finally talk about the long-awaited sequel to Beetlejuice. I probably shouldn't say his name 3 times. Maybe I'm going to try that throughout this episode. Try not to say his name a 3rd time, because I already said it twice by accident, or I don't know how it works. But anyway, you know what? Heck with that. I'm just going to say it anyway. So, the long-awaited sequel to the classic horror comedy Tim Burton 80s movie Beetlejuice finally came out this year. Just called Beetlejuice. Not called Beetlejuice 2 or anything like that. I don't know. I guess Beetlejuice 2 had been too predictable. I guess having Beetlejuice being at the title of the sequel makes sense. But at the same time, I'm just like, well, I don't know, it's just like too many syllables for me. But anyway, let's move on from that. So I had some high expectations for this because surprisingly we have had quite a good few movies that came out this year. Godzilla, X-Kong, The New Empire, Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, which was decent. It was all right. Deadpool and Wolverine, which was an absolute blast, just completely exploded the box office, and hopefully Disney will wake up from its past mistakes. We'll see. Doubtful, but anyway. And then with Beetlejuice coming out, you know, it seemed pretty good. Obviously, with the classic film Beetlejuice that Tim Burton made, it's an absolute classic. Everybody who's seen it absolutely loves it, and you know, it definitely has that Tim Burton creepy, spooky vibe that you would see from a whole bunch of other movies like Nightmare Before Christmas, and you know, all those other different scary-ish or, you know, creepy movies he's given a vibe to, really. So, you know, like that. Obviously, I had some high expectations for this because, you know, with Michael Keaton returning as Beetlejuice and Winona Ryder and even Catherine O'Hara, which I was really surprised that Catherine O'Hara would come back for it. But hey, I'm all for it. And of course, it kind of makes sense for Jenna Ortega to be in the movie as well, because it's like you can't really have a spooky movie without Jenna Ortega. I mean, she's been in the past 2 Scream movies, which, even though they're absolute garbage, you know, she's still popular. She's Wednesday Addams and all that. You know, she's worked with Tim Burton before, so it's like, yeah, makes sense for her to be in something like this. So it's like, why not? Now, with the first Beetlejuice, it obviously, like I said, it's a classic. You know, it starred Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, who played as Adam and Barbara. Basically, like these 2 people who died in a car accident, and they didn't realize they were ghosts, and all of a sudden people start to move into their house, which they don't want, clearly, and so they do their absolute best to try and scare them out, but they can't, and then they get this bio-exorcist called Beetlejuice, who's played by Michael Keaton, and before he played Beetlejuice, wasn't as popular as he would be soon. Like, before this, he was in Mr. Mom and a couple other movies, and surprisingly, too, this was also before he was Batman. That would be a year later after Beetlejuice. Obviously, you know, when Michael Keaton is on screen, it completely steals the show, despite him only having about, maybe about like 12 minutes of screen time in his own movie. But I still think it works very well. It has that, like, charming, funny, with still being slightly horror with comedy vibe to it. The actors work very well. They're pretty memorable. Lots of scenes are very memorable. The characters and all the different people, you know, being there, and the makeup and all that stuff looks absolutely incredible. The set design looks amazing and imaginative. Even like the stop motion of the sandworm is really cool. And lots of it makes absolutely no sense, but I don't think you're supposed to. You're basically supposed to not take this seriously, just like go away from reality as possible and just be like, hey, just enjoy this movie, you know? And that's pretty much what it is. Like, nothing has to make sense. It's a Tim Burton movie. It's going to be weird with some spooky stuff in it. And obviously going into Beetlejuice, I expected kind of the same thing. My overall impression, I thought it was good. Obviously, I don't think, in my opinion, it will surpass the original by any means. It was still good. I just did have like a couple little nitpicky things about it. We'll kind of go over that. I'll kind of go over a brief synopsis while I try not to spoil too much. I might spoil just a couple tiny little things, but it's only like little sprinkles, so it's nothing too major, but I'll do my best not to spoil it in case any of you haven't seen the movie yet. So, basically what happens in this is that Lydia is like has a career since she's like a psychic, or basically she could see ghosts, like from the last movie, how she could see ghosts and no one else could. She has a daughter who kind of is all like on not really the best of speaking terms, and her mom is just basically like this new popular artist, like that's like has her own building and all this stuff, how she was like an artist and all that stuff. But then it's revealed that like her, their father dies, and this is one of the other things. This isn't really a complaint, but it's kind of one of those things where they kind of wrote them out in a way just to not have some of the actors in there, and it kind of makes sense. Like obviously with Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, they're not going to be in there for maybe a couple of reasons that probably people would already know. But it would have been nice to at least see Gina Davis in there, but oh well. Basically, they just explained that there was like this loophole and they're not here anymore. And then with Jeffrey Jones, I'm not going to get into details about why he's not in the film. You can look that up for yourself. But the long and short of it is he's just, let's just say he's just not in this for a good reason. However, they give the character quite a gruesome demise for what happens to him. But basically, they explain that like he's passed on, so they go back to the old house, and they're trying to, I want to say they're trying to sell it or try to take stuff out of it from where they used to live or whatever the heck. I don't remember. But anyway, all this stuff happens, and then all of a sudden Beetlejuice tries to come back in the picture, and then all of a sudden Astrid, who's played by Jenna Ortega, who is Lydia's daughter, all of a sudden gets mixed up in the whole ghost world, and all that stuff happens. So basically, Lydia needs the help of Beetlejuice to get her out of the ghost realm, or whatever you want to call it. In a way, it sounds almost exactly similar to the animated series, which I'm pretty sure is not even canon, like at all. But yes, for those who don't know, Beetlejuice had an animated series a year after Beetlejuice was out, and it went for quite a few seasons, I believe. But anyway, it's something similar to that, except it's like, 30-something years later, 40-something years later, with, a new daughter and all that stuff. And, basically, Beetlejuice is helping her, even though it's like one of those things, so it's like, well, I'll help you, but there's a catch, yada, yada. And in the mix of this was like a couple other actors in there, like William Dafoe. I did not expect him to be in there, so it was pretty cool to see him in there. A bit of a minor character that he makes in there, but I still thought it was pretty cool to see him in there. And there was another character which I thought was pretty interesting, but unfortunately, she wasn't as interesting as I thought she would be. Now, this is kind of a minor spoiler, but, she's one of the characters in there, but it's just like not necessarily a big deal in my opinion. So if you don't want to hear this, then click off or whatever. But anyway, so one of the characters is Beetlejuice's ex-wife, Dolores, who's played by Monica Bellucci. I apologize if I'm butchering that last name. And she seems pretty cool because she's like a stapled up version of Morticia Addams merged with the Bride of Frankenstein. And I think it's actually kind of cool. Her character is kind of interesting because they even get this like whole lore backstory of like who she is and all this stuff. But the fact that they like barely use her character is just as little screen time as less screen time than Beetlejuice. And so it just goes to make me think, why even put this character in the movie if she's like barely in there? It's like she only does a couple little things here and there. She makes a brief appearance, and then all of a sudden she's just gone at the very end. It's just, I don't know. In my opinion, if she was just like completely written out, I don't think it would have changed the plot. And I think that's the other thing that the movie kind of faults from, is that there's too many characters and there's just too much to keep up with. There's a couple slow bits in there. And the other thing is that, like, from what I was described from someone, is that it's more horror comedy rather than comedy with horror. Because the last movie was more comedy with horror, but this one was a bit more horror than comedy, because, you know, this was like actual PG-13 rather than in the 80s it was PG, but before the whole PG-13 PG thing was more updated, I guess you could say. And so, you know, with this, there was a lot more special effects, and there were a lot of practical effects, and even some stop motion effects, which was really cool to see. Obviously, anything stop motion is really great if done right. So I thought it was pretty good. But the fact that there's like so many characters, and this one character, you know, Beetlejuice's ex-wife being in there and barely in there, it's just like, why even like put her in there? She's not going to do anything. I mean, she did some things, but barely did a thing. So it's almost pointless to have her in there, which is very unfortunate. And there were a couple slow things. There were a couple twists that I did like and honestly didn't really see coming. And I was like very shocked about it, being like, whoa, what just happened, you know? Or like, wow, I didn't see that coming, actually. And all that. But at least on the plus side is that I can definitely say it seemed like all the actors had a really fun time, especially Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton seemed to have a great, absolute perfect time doing this movie. And to me, I think it's also one of those things where it's like, where when he plays Beetlejuice, he like unleashes his inner cartoon character in a way. He's kind of like a living cartoon character mixed with some horror elements when he's Beetlejuice. Winona Ryder, I think, had a good time doing it. Jenna seemed to have quite a good time. Even Catherine O'Hara looked like she was just having a blast, just like doing her over-the-top acting of like being the screaming mother and grandmother now. So I thought it was pretty good. I'm not really sure what else to say about it. Like, it was good, but I don't think it was as good. Even the ending, I won't spoil the ending, but I can definitely say the way that it ended, like ended the story all the way, like basically put the story to a close, like it was fine, but the epilogue just completely confused me and was a little bit disturbing for me, because like I didn't understand it, and I kind of get the point of it, but at the same time this really felt like it was one of those weird, disturbing effed up scenes that was kind of like an alternate ending that you would see in a DVD bonus feature. Like, this felt like the ending, like the alternate ending to Freddy vs. Jason on the DVD bonus features if you watch that. And that's kind of what this felt like. It just felt like it was off. Like, it didn't feel like the charming ending like the first one. And that's kind of what it kind of strays away from. Like, the sequel kind of didn't feel like it had enough love and charm like the first one did to make it, like, even though it was a bit spooky, it was still fun and charming. This one wasn't as charming. Like, it was still funny in a few places, but it just didn't feel like it had the same vibe, if that makes sense. Not to say it was bad, it's just that it definitely felt like it was a completely different movie in tone, if that makes sense. But again, like I said, it seemed like all the actors were having a lot of fun, and that's probably a main thing if you're going to make a really goofy horror comedy. You got to have fun with it, depending on what the scenario is. I thought it was good. I thought all the actors were pretty good. Even like the little subtle Easter eggs and such were in there were pretty good. Lots of the new characters and dead ghosts and all that stuff were a little amusing to watch and all that. It's like, if I were to be a part of it and like rewrite it, I would probably rewrite a couple things, kind of remove a couple things, not show as many characters and such. Like, I get the point of some, but it's at the same time, it's like, I don't know. But it does give like this more kind of expanded universe or lore into this ghost realm and all this stuff, and it does kind of confirm like where what this place kind of is, if it is like a purgatory or in where hell really is and all that stuff. So it shows kind of some stuff like that. So it definitely expands on that. Other than that, I thought this movie was just okay. Like I said, not as great as the first, won't surpass the original, but I still thought it was just an okay sequel. Now, I know lots of people are probably thinking too, like, well, there's got to be a third one now, right? And I don't know. We'll see. I read some sort of article that said Tim Burton said that Beetlejuice 3 will unlikely never happen because he'll be like 100 when that happens or something. I don't know. But if that does happen, I guess it's just a matter of time. I guess we'll see. It may not happen. I don't necessarily need a sequel. I mean, if you need another sequel, you might as well just watch the animated series and get that kind of closure. But even that, it's just like not even canon. It's just something for children to amuse themselves. It's like when The Mask had an animated series. It's like, oh, here you go. Here's an animated series for you since this movie was popular and all that. So, yeah, that's about it. Oh, I forgot to mention another character that was in there, which was like the manager that wanted to marry Lydia. He was like probably the most unlikable character in that entire movie. Like, he wasn't one of those characters that was like one of those characters you love to hate or anything like that. He was just like that annoying hate, if that made sense. It's like there was nothing about him that stood out. He was just a douche and all that stuff. I just didn't really care for him. Like, I understood the point of him existing, you know, being in the story and all that, but just didn't really care for him. But other than that, that's just about it. Well, anyway, that was kind of my whole take of Beetlejuice. Really excited to see it. I enjoyed it all the way through. Gave my thoughts. Had a couple nitpicks here and there, but I still thought it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it is one of those things where, at least once a year around Halloween, I'll probably still go back to the original movie regardless, because no one can ever forget that Day-O scene. No one will ever forget it, and that'll be stuck in your head for quite a while, especially the ending song of that. But other than that, I still thought it was pretty good. It was great to see the actors reprise the role, especially with Michael Keaton coming back as a Tim Burton character for the second time. So other than that, I thought it was pretty good. What were your guys' thoughts on Beetlejuice 2, or Beetlejuice, whatever you want to call it? I thought it was a lot of fun. So anyway, that's this week's episode of Useless Nerdy Knowledge, and I'll see you guys next time.